Well, welcome to the unofficial start to summer that felt a whole lot more like spring or fall around here. Parts of the Denver metro area saw heavy downpours, even a bit of hail on this Memorial Day.
Yeah, the weather didn't deter everyone. We saw some people spending time at Chatfield Reservoir today, but if you're holding out for completely dry weather, you may have to wait a little while longer. Thanks for joining us at 9. I'm Alexandra Lewis.
And I'm Kyle Clark. So with those storm chances sticking around for much of the work week, let's get right to 9 News meteorologist Kathy Sabin. Hi, Kathy.
Hi there. Things are quieting down in Denver, although if you look off to the west, there's still some dark clouds kind of looming on the horizon. On Sunday, we saw record rainfall, a daily rainfall record 1.39 out at DIA, but that wasn't the only area that saw incredible rain. Yesterday, 1 to 2 inches of rain. So you can imagine with the showers that came through today on saturated soils, flooding concerns of prime concern. And temperatures have been kind of cool. We're down to 53 in Denver, cloudy and cool this Memorial Day, and still tracking some scattered showers moving from north to south along the Front Range. The heavier storms around Lyman and Flagler are finally kind of letting up there, but just east of Highlands Ranch, north of Castle Rock, still a few light showers. The threat for severe weather pushing south now along the Colorado-New Mexico line, and temperatures will be quite chilly overnight tonight with some areas of patchy fog. Weather headlines include a chance of thunderstorms tomorrow. I'll have the timing on that, but also a nice warming trend. We'll be back to the 80s before you know it. All those details just ahead.
Southwest Airlines says a flight from Tampa to Denver may have been struck by lightning. The airline says the flight might have been hit during its descent into Denver last night. It landed safely around 8:30. No one was hurt. There were first responders out there just in case they were needed. Maria Torres was on board last night. She says there was a lot of turbulence about 20 minutes before landing, and then she saw a white flash.
I was just kind of looking out the window, and all of a sudden I just see this bright light kind of like light up the aircraft and kind of shook our seats a little bit. And we were like, oh my gosh, like what just happened? I'm looking at my husband and he was like, I think we just got hit by lightning. And I was like, no way. And then everybody kind of around us was like thinking the same thing.
National Weather Service says lightning strikes like that are pretty common. Planes are designed to handle them. Longtime drag racing venue could be making a comeback in northern Colorado.
9 News reporter Colton Chavez is here with what's next for Bandimere Speedway.
Well, Alex, after spending over 6 decades in their Morrison location, they sold the property in 2023. Now, that was after a legal battle with Jefferson County over COVID guidelines. Now, it looks like Bandimere is racing towards Weld County. It's a race towards the future for Bandimere Speedway. In an announcement on YouTube,
to surrender the property,
John Bandimere Jr. said the family purchased a plot of land in the Hudson area of Weld County. He says the hope is for that to be the starting point for a new raceway. In the video, he says that while the Bandimere family has not been actively hosting races, they have been working to continue their legacy of racing in Colorado. A legacy that seemed to be nearing its end when the property was sold in 2023.
Well, I mean, hopefully next year is just a year that we miss, and hopefully there's another track after that. But, you know, honestly, it's a lot of the friends come out. We just have a good time together. We race. We keep up to date with each other's lives, families, things along those lines. So it's more of a bonding time. It's more of a community, and it's going to be missed.
Back then, Bandimere Jr. talked about finding a new location in Denver.
there's always a time for things to change.
Nearly 2 years later, and Bandimere Jr. says the change of location to Weld County is the first piece of a complex puzzle. A puzzle whose future pieces will be built around purchasing more land in the surrounding area. And as of tonight, we're still working to learn how much of that land they'll need to purchase and a timeline when they could have all of that completed. In Denver, Colton Chavez, 9 News.
A family is considering moving out of their place in Denver's South Park Hill because cars keep crashing into their house. Dave Stoll and his family live off of Monaco Parkway in 17th. He says they've experienced 5 car crashes, with the most recent happening just over the weekend. 3 of those crashes have caused damage to their house. He and other neighbors say drivers heading eastbound on 17th often don't realize the road veers left. Instead, they keep going straight directly into their house.
Extremely frustrating and heartbreaking, and the amount of anxiety and stress on us just from a personal standpoint of this happening over and over and over again and then the fears for our safety and well-being, and more importantly, the general public.
We reached out to the city about this. They say the intersection, there's no work currently scheduled there, but they may try to look at signage this week. The homeowners say there were more signs warning drivers in the past, but when drivers hit those signs, they haven't been replaced.
There's pushback tonight on the governor's plan to build a winding pedestrian bridge in front of the state capitol. As part of Colorado's 150th anniversary, the state plans to build this winding bridge from the Capitol to Lincoln Veterans Memorial Park in front of Civic Center Park. Group Historic Denver told us they don't think this thing would be functional. They believe there are better ways to celebrate the state's history.
We could incorporate arts, creativity, culture in a way more subtle and effective way that would be in keeping with the park's existing characteristics.
The state has already spent $1.5 million on the concept and design. There's fundraising ongoing for the $18 to $20 million total cost, with the state saying the goal is for half to come from donations. Advocacy groups in Colorado are raising concerns as the U.S. Senate prepares to take up Republicans' budget bill that would make major cuts to Medicaid. The bill aims to cut Medicaid by $700 billion over the next decade. It would also create a work requirement for those covered by Medicaid. Colorado Access is an organization that provides services for people on Medicaid. They estimate that those changes could affect 120,000 Coloradans. They say it will cost millions of dollars to implement a requirement that they don't believe is needed.
Already today, 92% of people who are covered on Medicaid either are working or they're caregivers. They have disabilities. People who can work are working on this program. This is not an issue.
The Republicans' goal is to send a final version of the budget to the president's desk by the 4th of July.
Planned Parenthood is closing 8 centers in the Midwest. The closures are largely because of federal funding cuts, including that budget bill we just talked about, which would ban Medicaid funds from going to Planned Parenthood. The organization says 4 of its 6 centers in Iowa and 4 facilities in Minnesota will shut down. The region's Planned Parenthood is also laying off 66 employees and offering 37 others the chance to be reassigned. Of the remaining 15 clinics operated by Planned Parenthood North Central states, 6 will provide abortion procedures. 5 of those are in Minnesota. The other clinic is in Omaha, Nebraska. A bill requiring healthcare facilities across Colorado to provide emergency care to anyone who needs it will soon become law. Democratic Governor Jared Polis recently signed it.
Spring 9 News reporter Rachel Krause on this now. Rachel, this is a version at the state level of what is an existing federal law.
Yeah, EMTALA protections have been around federally for years. They require emergency rooms to act to save someone's life, regardless of whether or not they can pay, their immigration status, or whether they'd need an abortion. As abortion access is chipped away in some states, access to EMTALA protections for abortion are whittling away too. I spoke with an OBGYN who says this kind of protection is life-saving.
Pregnancy is a health condition that can become quite complicated.
Over the past few years, the question of who can receive abortion care and when has gotten complicated too. Dr. Lauren Thaxton says restrictions and limitations mean women in the U.S. are dying preventable deaths.
That is absolutely the case, unfortunately.
Dr. Thaxton is an OBGYN here in Denver. She made the move from Texas.
It was an extremely hard decision to leave.
With abortion access protected here, she's still caring for patients from her home state.
Every week I see patients from Texas, and that's a big part of why I wanted to be here, is actually to stay connected to my community and continue to make a difference for these places where patients are really experiencing a different standard of healthcare than they are here in Colorado.
A recent report from the Gender Equity Policy Institute found mothers living in states that banned abortion are nearly twice as likely to die during pregnancy, childbirth, or soon after giving birth than moms in states with abortion access.
It's very unsurprising, to be honest.
Dr. Thaxton says in an emergency, abortion can be necessary to stop bleeding during miscarriage or infections like sepsis.
I have seen both of those situations in Texas, and I've seen those situations in Colorado. And the difference in how those situations are managed in those 2 places is very different because of policy.
With federal EMTALA protections that require Emergency Rooms Act to save a patient's life no longer enforced for patients needing an abortion, Colorado lawmakers work to protect that here, having seen the deadly impact to women without it.
Thaxton testified in favor.
You need to act in the patient's best interest in the moment as quickly as possible with a patient's consent. That is something that is important to protect.
Democratic Governor Jared Polis signed that bill into law. Dr. Thaxton says that protection is life-saving.
Dr. Thaxton says people often forget that pregnancy is a medical condition and one that women do die from. She says ensuring protections are in place to help women if something goes wrong is critical. Rachel Krause, 9 News.